A few weeks ago, I posted a video about the new Google Opal and how you could use Opal to create some AI workflows for your AppSheet data based on capabilities that it has, but AppSheet does not yet have. And on that video, I got a comment asking if you could also use Opal to create conditional columns like you have in Airtable and Smart Suite and tools like that for your AppSheet data. Well, the good news is you don't even have to do that in Opal because AppSheet has that capability built into it already, and that's what we're going to look at in this video today. But before we get there, if this is your first time visiting the channel, welcome. My name is Doug, and what we do here is talk about Google AppSheet and AppSheet related technologies. If that's something you're interested in, be sure to subscribe because I post new videos weekly, and if you're subscribed, you'll be notified as soon as those become available. And if you're returning, welcome back. Thanks for continuing to watch the videos. Okay, let's head over to the computer and look at how to create calculated columns, aka conditional columns, aka dynamic columns. They have lots of different names depending on the tool you're using, but let's look at how to create them in AppSheet. All right, there are a few different ways that you can set values dynamically within AppSheet, and the one that you use really determines on what you're trying to do. And you can figure that out by just asking yourself questions to figure out which one of the scenarios applies. So the first is that you're trying to set an initial value or a default value on a particular column, and you want to manage that column yourself or the value of that column yourself after it's initially set when the record is created. The second is that you always want that calculated value to be calculated and recalculated automatically for you, and you never plan to set that value yourself. And the third case is kind of a combination of those two in that you only want it to be set for you automatically in certain cases and only when a certain condition is true, and the rest of the time you want to manage that value automatically. So let's take a look at specific examples of each one of those cases. What I've got here is an app for managing cupcake orders. And the first scenario that I want to cover is that first one where we talked about where I just want to set the default value to something that's dynamic or calculated. So what I'm going to use here for that example is the order date. Whenever a new order comes in, I want to set the order date to whatever the current date is. And there's a column, or there's an expression that you can use for that in AppSheet. It's called initial value. And I can go there. And what I can do is enter an expression here for that. So I know that the expression for initial value is very simple. It's just the word now followed by open parentheses, close parentheses. So I'm just going to type that in now, open parentheses, close parentheses, and that gives you whatever the current date is and automatically inserts into that value. And again, since this is initial value, it's only going to be inserted when that row is initially created. Again, that's a simple expression, but if you have others that you're trying to figure out, there's a examples tab that's in the expression assistant here that lets you go through and look at different things that are time related or math related or text. And you can use these to figure out what the different functions is what these things are called in AppSheet are that you can use to build those expressions. But again, in our case here, this is pretty simple. We can just use now to insert the current date there. So I'm going to click Save. And now when I go and create a new record, you see that it automatically sets the order date to the current date. And if I go and save this after the fact, and want to change that to something else like the 29th, or say that the order had come in yesterday and I want to go back to the 25th and save it, I'm able to do that. All right, so that's our first case, again, when you only want the initial value to be set. The next case that we're going to talk about is when you always want the value of a column to be automatically calculated regardless, and you're never planning to set that yourself. And in order to do that, you can use what's called a virtual column in AppSheet. And you do that by going up here and clicking this plus that's at the top of the data view here. You click plus, and again, if you hover over it, it says add virtual column. You can give it a name. In our case, what we want to call this is the urgency. We want to use this to determine whether or not this order is urgent based on the current date and the due date of that order. So I'm going to call this urgency. I'm going to click this here to write the app formula for this. Now, in this case, our expression that we're going to have to write is a little bit more complicated than that last one. What we want to do is figure out that if the order date is either today or before today, and the order is not yet marked complete, then we want this to say that the order is urgent. And if neither one of those cases are true, we want to say that it's normal urgency. So for example, if it's not due till next week, it would be normal urgency. So since this expression is a little bit more complicated than the other one that I'd written, I'm going to use the AppSheet Advisor AI assistant to create it. And this is an AI assistant that I've created. It's a Chrome extension that runs within your AppSheet app to help you with things like this. And you can basically just give it a plain text description of what you're trying to do, and it will give you the actual expression for accomplishing that particular thing. So this is something that's free to try. There's a link to it down in the description. So if you want to use this same thing in order to write your expressions, just click that link and you can go sign up and get access to this. All right, so you access the AI assistant by clicking this little write expression thing here. And what I'm going to say is that if the order is not complete and the due date is today or before today, then make it urgent. Otherwise, make it normal. So I can just click create expression here. It does take a few seconds to actually come up with that expression. So here's the suggested expression. It says if both of these cases are true, the order is not complete and the due date is less than or equal today, then make it urgent, and otherwise make it normal. And if you want to learn a little bit more about how exactly that expression is made up, it breaks it down here and explains it a little bit more. But I'm just going to say use this expression. It's going to insert it into the expression input here. I'm going to click save. And we are good to go there. So let's save our application. It's currently August 27th. This order for Bob Rogers is due on August 28th. So let's open that. If I looked right now, the urgency is normal because it's not due until tomorrow. If I actually go and edit this and I change the due date to today, so it's now set to urgent, and I can use that column for filtering or grouping or sorting or anything else, showing different styling, anything else within my app now that I have that value set. Again, in this case, there's no way that I can change that. You see that it's grayed out here. It automatically gets set since it's a virtual column. And then the final scenario we want to cover here is to only set a column when a specific condition is true. So in this app, we have a payment status column, and we want to set the payment status to ready to invoice, but only when the approval date is changed from nothing, blank, meaning the order is not yet approved, to an actual date. So only when that change happens from blank to a date do we want this value to be set. And you can do that with an automation, and automations are available here underneath this little robot icon. I'm going to say create an automation. I'm going to say create a bot. And we want this to run when a order is updated, but only, again, in that condition. So to do that, I'm going to hit configure event. And I want the event to be only an update to order. So I'm going to uncheck add and delete. And then I need that condition that we talked about, that specifically that the approval date was blank and now it is no longer blank. So I'm going to go into this condition here, and I'm again going to use the AI assistant to create this. And what I want to do here is I want to check if the approval date was blank before this record was updated, and now it's no longer blank. So again, I'll click create expression. It's again going to take a few seconds to come back with that expression. Okay, here we go. So what this is saying is, and meaning both of these things are true, that this row before, so this row before the update approval date was blank or is blank, and the current value after the update is not blank. So those two things combined together will make this combined expression return true to actually allow whatever else we have set up in our automation to run. So again, there's a breakdown of exactly how that works down here if you want to read through it and learn how these expressions work. But for now, we're just going to click use expression. That checks out, and we're going to click save. Now that we actually know that that's true, we want to actually set the payment status column to let it know that this order is ready to invoice. So to do that, I'm going to say add step here. I'm going to create a new step. And I want this to be a data action. And I want to set row values for the current row. And what I want to set is the payment status. And I need to put in the value here. So I'm going to click that. And if I just enter a double quote here, this is this column is a enum or enumeration. So if I just hit a double quote, it's going to show me what all the different values that are available for this column are. So I'm just gonna go down to ready to invoice and select that and click save. So this automation is ready now. Let's just clean up the naming of things a little bit here. So I'm gonna set this, call this one set ready to invoice. I'm gonna set this to approval date set. And I'm gonna call the whole thing order ready to invoice. And I'm going to save. Okay, let's go back to our app again and let's go into an order. So this one for Ella Marshall. So I have this approve action set up here, and it does two things. It first sets the approval date to the current date, and it sets the column named complete to yes, saying that this order is now complete. So separate to everything that we just set up, that's what that action does. But since one of the things that it does is set the approval date, it's going to actually trigger the automation that we just made to run. So right now you see that the payment status on this is draft. If I go and I click approve, it's going to again set those two values on that row. And you see as soon as I did that, the payment status is now ready to invoice. So again, we only want that value to be set in that particular case. So now say that it's ready to invoice. This goes over to our accounting department. They send out the invoice. They come back in to edit the value of this thing to say that the status is now invoiced. So we don't want anything to happen in this case. We only want to set that value when the approval date goes from blank to an actual date. So when they save this now, even though it's going to go through that automation again, it's going to see that we didn't change the approval date value, so it's not going to change anything. So as soon as I do that, you see the payment status is now invoiced. You're able to, from this point, manage that value yourself. It only gets set automatically when the condition that we set up in that automation evaluates to true. All right, so that's AppSheet's conditional columns. Again, if you'd like to check out the AppSheet Advisor AI assistant that I used to write expressions in the video, I'll include a link to that down in the description. Just click the link, provide a little info, install the extension, and you'll be writing expressions just like that within a few minutes. And if there's other questions you have or other topics you'd like to see covered on the channel, be sure to add them in the comments as well. I do read all those comments, and when possible, I will create videos to answer those questions or cover those specific topics that you request. All right, that's all I got for today. As always, thanks for watching and happy building.